to the mic.
Okay. Damn. She knew he was gay. She knew he was gay, girl.
Oh shit.
Woo woo!
Everyone. So my name is Outlive. I have written 6 books. My 7th one is being published on June 21st. This next book is going to have 10 poems that are 10 pages each. I'm not about to recite a 10-page poem to you, don't worry. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. This is going to be a snippet of the first poem, so this is kind of like the introduction poem, if you will. You can follow me on my socials, which is OVTLIVE, Outlive. This one is called For My Last Trick. The world naturally selected me this way. Maybe it was meant to be. But such faith is both cynical and hopeful, and dies somewhere between estranged optimism and shattered self-love. But in the radical glances of meaning, I have found gardens of the most beautiful things, golden dandelions and bright bees. And there I didn't cry every day. I didn't search for constant possibility. I wish I could tell you I died all right, and I can't tell you in totality why I always tried. But there was always something inside of me that sought love and laughter, that wanted me to be happy, but knew in the end I couldn't be. So I went on to say, that's the way it is. As I flung myself into immature relationships and bleeding lips, I laid unmoving in rushing traffic and wide awake in a dimly lit attic. But it has all tied together perfectly. I was 17 when I knew a man that could pull magic tricks, leave the world for a while right in front of me as his eyes would move in camera clicks. He would hold my hand and say, please don't turn out like I have. Make something of yourself. And we would fuck in a greasy bed, lay my head on the pillow next to his ashtray, as he would pull a sleight of hand and do it all again, all before my mother came home delayed. And I'd tell her I was walking the lake, but now I'm the one with it all coursing through my veins, the one who has to look through the world in eyes seeping with pain. And maybe you'll look to me as I breathe out please in a hushed whisper that almost seems like a cry for mercy. But I just wanted to know if I could take the memories with me. Is this the fate I deserve? The one I asked for? Is it finally my turn? Well, how could I have thought that this is what I wanted? Well, I don't like the hand I've been dealt, and I don't think I ever have, but maybe that boy never knew how I really felt. He never knew how my skin welted under his cigarettes as they burned, but as were the homosexual romances in the Bible Belt. You would never be able to understand what I had to learn. As those sinister ploys and plays went on to fool the crowd in a blaze, rampant inferno and sweltering flames made me want to come out to play. But I got hurt when I saw my own face, remembering the crimson haze, where I find every misphase, but the moon knows how much I gave. So please, I know that the right one would have stayed, and maybe that was never or always my mistake. As I used to lie wide awake, with bloodshot eyes that would shine across the room to see if someone would come over and take care of me when I come to break. But no one came, and so I sat with the suicidal thoughts of a teenager that prayed for what seemed tame, and the world stayed the same. It knew something I never could. I look up and ask, one more heartbreak? God responds, you want one more for the road? As he takes one glimpse at my cornered stance, but I have never known love to be kind when it comes from a man, as even in the one that promises he wanted to hold my hand in front of all of the land, there is an hourglass of red sand that warns me of a dead end. And now I'm barely able to stand, and I can't really remember why I asked for romance. But please, God, you must hate what I've got, because every man I try to love always comes to make me rot. They've turned me inside and out, warned me for their plot, for what I sought. But maybe I forgot. Maybe I never knew how to be what they thought, as I have never really known what I was doing, plucking apples and leaves from the trees as hands went free and I was collapsing into the mud underneath. I haven't been able to breathe since I was 14. There has always been someone on top of me, someone choking me, as I used to plead for some ease, for someone to treat me nicely. But Daddy always said, rough is the only way you learn, rough is what you need. And when I tried to change that story, that love was stolen by destiny. Those hands were murderous and bloody. The ticking clock stared me down mercilessly. It is a cruel, cruel world to have lived and never been seen. I look to the right and see one more man begging for some time to talk with me. I guess they all had shame when it came to the ending. So I let my chest heave out one more puff of weed as I sling my head back and feel it all coming back to me. You see, it wasn't originally written that I would fall in love with a narcissistic masochist who would become my mortician. But in the big and brutal confusion, I revealed to him that I was a magician, who had learned how to change emotions in instances, some psychological alchemy that gave me the ability to convert grief into confession and mania into perplexion, because I fear that for too long I have tried to write with God's mighty pen. But this clock has never ticked consistently. It stops every now and then, it dictates my fate and doesn't tell me anything, until I'm stuck in bed, staring at the ceiling, somehow wishing for the end. But I'm supposed to know better now, but I'm still the same way I was at 17, because the memories won't leave, and so I guess neither will he, because I can't handle what I can't dictate. I want everything and everybody, so then I'll have nothing, no need to worry, and maybe I'm just scared of it all. I'm scared to be able to see the ending. When will I be able to realize that truthfully, none of this was up to me? But the problems needed a solution, and I tried to deliver it, but the equations were misconstrued to fit an image of a boy that no longer existed, perplexed myself into submission of my own guilt. And I tried to tell everyone that the sadness was lifted, that it was all forgiven, but that was the first trick, and since I have never been seen as delicate, when in truth, I was told that I was born of porcelain and glistening ceramic. But I never learned what caused the split, what left me desolate, as I can pinpoint to some time at an early age when my dad would come home and static would fill the air as my limbs went numb. Because what if he yells my name? What if I'm in trouble again? The buzz in my bloodstream was put there by him. The addicting flavor of my laughter was always a product of my hiding, the gift I was given so I could live a life of deceit. Because what if I told you that because of my father, I don't think I ever knew who I could be? And as I sit in white sheets next to a shadow that smiles menacingly at me, I'll tell you that he does not bite. He is not mean, but I know how he seems. As we were taught to fear the dark, to run from what we could not be. But if there's one thing I have learned in my life of secrecy, it is that no one ever really leaves. And I know it is daunting. I know you too have sat at an empty windowsill wishing it could all come crumbling. But leave, leave, leave. All I talk about is how they leave because it didn't happen young like people think. Not in the way that you see, because the yelling came first and then his hands. And that was the abandonment, because after it all, I never saw him as a man, just a pair of coiled fists and furrowed brows. Those tools of discipline went on to be how I knew him, how I knew my first form of masculine. So I got into a few fights when I was young because I knew it all too soon, the violence. And I know I can't blame a child, so I blame the teenager I was in his rebellion, because maybe I should have moved on sooner. Maybe my father should be forgiven. But no, I have been living in bruises and stretched tendons since I was 7. And then came the guilt at 11, and at 15 came all the men. Because I haven't been alone. I've gone on to believe I can't be. I still wish for him. The healing has not been a straight line, and the path ahead winds like the yellow brick road, in a dense fog that awaits what I am meant to know when the doctor comes in. But even then, where does the story go? Will I just be another boy that you came to know? I rise from the hospital sheets and plant 2 cold feet to the tile. I flash a smile. My teeth gleam under the LED. God must hate me, because the poetry was never supposed to be a grave, but now it may have to be. As I grace this stage for prophetic fulfillment, for standing ovation, you must understand that I have only ever lived so I could see the end. And maybe that is the ideal of a pessimist. But how would you like me to put it? You wish for me to tell you that I liked being able to live? That maybe it was all worth it? Well, what if it wasn't? What if I was just meant to be placed in a pure spruce coffin, buried rotten, and then brutally forgotten for the right reasons? What if I die with regret? What if I make it to heaven without being forgiven? What if the final glimpse of life is still all about him? I have suffered more consequences than I believe the actions deserved. The punishment far outweighed the crime, as they like to say. But that part of the story was never seen or even heard. So let me put the chains over my shoulders and pull it all with my discarded fate. Because I will not allow you to look at me with concern. Please don't give the love to me now that I never knew until it was all too late. It will just remind me that I was always a story that someone else had to learn. The spotlights shine over my frail limbs, and the curtains begin to rise, and I see the monsters I spent time with and fucked senselessly. They stay in the wings, and maybe I lied. Maybe without me alive, they will all turn out all right. But their petrified eyes lock with mine as I begin to sway from left to right. Because this is me, my malice-ridden smirk accepting yours as you sit in the front row, under the lights. as I prepare for one more show, one more time to lie and sing. For my last trip, I offer testament to what I have seen as divinity. Thank you.